Hey, welcome back to GT Canada. Today we're doing a water pump on my 2006 Chevy Avalanche. So the water pump has failed more or less catastrophically. It is dumping water out all over the place. So it's mostly empty. So before you start this job, what you want to do is drain the rest of the coolant from your system. And then I'm going to walk you through what you do as we do it along here. It's actually pretty straightforward, and as far as water pumps go, these are one of the easier ones to do. It would be the same on your 4.8, your 5.3, your 6 liter, your 6.2, and basically any Chevy LT engine. Let's begin. So here is where we are at right now. We've pulled the intake tube off. I had to pull the top engine cover off just so that I could get to the clamp that was holding it on here. If you can reach it without taking that off, you don't need to take that off. I've also removed the Serpentine Belt by putting a 15mm socket on here, and you just pry it over and that loosens it enough. Now I'm leaving the Serpentine Belt down here just because it's out of my way there, and I'm okay with that. There. You should probably replace the Serpentine Belt while you do this. Now if you're not paying attention to how the belt was run through here, I will show you how to figure that out so you don't get screwed up. Now other videos say to take this off and this off. I'm not going to take those off, and the reason is this is attached to the water pump, so I can take it out once it's out, and then I can adjust, well, I can swap it outside of the car, which is a whole lot better than trying to do it while it's in there. And this, I just don't think this is going to be in the way, so I'm going to not take this out. But all the rest of this, all we're doing is removing the hoses. So I've removed the top hose, I've removed the bottom hose, and now I've pulled the connectors, the clamps off of the heater hoses so that they can be removed too. Now there might be some residual coolant in the system that will drain, and you want to do your best to catch that, because we don't want to get that going down the street where it'll kill somebody's animal or dog or whatever. It's been on for a long time, obviously. Now I'm going to put those up here so that we don't lose any more coolant. Now if you're looking down here and you're wondering what needs to come off and what doesn't, you can look at the new one that I've got here to figure out which bolts come out. So here you can see the two tabs that this is going to bolt onto, which is how I know I don't need to take it off. So it looks like I've got 3 bolts on this side and I've got 3 bolts on this side. So when I look down here, I've got 1, 2, 3, and then over here I've got 1, 2, 3. So that's what I'm going to do. Take the 6 bolts off, and then the whole pump should come loose and just pop right out. So we're going to find out right now. So I've got all of the bolts off of there. I'm just taking the last one out, and then I'm going to pull the entire water pump assembly out. There we go. And just like that. This is the water pump that was in. So I need to take this part off, which is the tensioner. So there's 3 bolts that are holding that on. And I'll need to also pull the thermostat housing. Now some of the water pumps come with a new thermostat housing and thermostat. So this, the one I bought, was the cheaper one, which did not come with the housing, because I can just reuse the existing one, I hope. Now the other thing I want to do is inspect for signs of where it was leaking. I could, looks like there was some leaking over here. Over there on that one looks okay, but the biggest culprit in my case looks to have been right there on that gasket. Now since the pump did not completely fail, in theory I could pull it off, put new gaskets on, and put it back on and save myself about $100. But if I'm going through all this trouble anyway, and I don't know if this was ever replaced, I would rather replace it now while it's out with the new gaskets and all of that. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to strip this all down, transpose it onto the new one, and then get ready to put it back in. So a smart person would have loosened this while I was on the car. They were actually really tight, so I had to stand on it to hold it so that I could loosen these. So if it was still in the car, it would be holding itself, and then I could loosen them off. But I'm not that smart, and I figure things out as I go. So that's all I need to do with this. I took all the parts off that I need, so I don't need this anymore. I'm going to put it over here. It's really important that you do not muck these sealing surfaces up. So you don't ever want to lie this down, especially on concrete, which is why I had it sitting right here. But I do want to clean up the gasket faces on there. So you're not going to use a flat blade on it. You're going to use just a rag. So there's the gasket. You can tell it's a gasket because it's got a little bit of rubber on there. So you do not want that staying on and then end up double gasketing. So make sure that you've got the gasket off, and you can grab the other one too, because I can see that it is still on. There. Now I've got both gaskets off. These gaskets have definitely seen a better day. So that's good. Now I'm going to find a rag and just wipe the gasket surface so that I get a good seal. I'm just using the rag here and just wiping the mating surface of the gasket. It's especially important that you do not gouge it all up in any way. So it looks nice and clean now. I'm just going to give it the old feel test. Excellent. Now I'm going to get the new gaskets. This is what it comes with: 2 new gaskets and a gasket and a seal for the thermostat and new bolts for the thermostat housing. So I'm going to set those aside so I don't lose them. And I'm just going to do the water pump first. I want to put the gaskets on. These are pretty good quality. They've got rubber. So they're both exactly the same. Just one goes one way and one goes the other way. Now, how are you going to keep it in place? You can do it a number of ways. The way that I'm going to do it is I'm going to go like this. I'm going to put one of the bolts in there. I'm going to put one of the bolts in there. And then I'm going to hang this on here. Like that. I'm going to go one in here. Like that. Now that one's not going to move anywhere. And then same with this one. I'm only putting 4 of them in and leaving the bottom one because I don't want too many to fiddle with. But, uh-oh.
It's not good.
That's not good. And then I can go like this, line it up, and then you just want to make sure that they're not going to shift out of position on you. So you just got to get the threads started. Once they're started, we're home free. So I'm still just starting my threads. I'm not actually tightening anything down. I'm just making sure my threads have all bit. And then I can check to make sure that my gaskets have not moved anywhere. So we got those threaded. Now you can see, hopefully, I can pull this out like this. Can you see right in there? Right in there, you can see my gaskets in on both. It hasn't moved. And when this seals up there, it'll be perfectly in position. So now, before I tighten anything else down, I can get my final bolt in while it still can be kind of wiggled around and get the threads lined up. So that one's in. And let's do that one. There. So now I got them all in. So now I'm going to just finger tighten them. Now there is a tightening sequence for this. which is why we're just going to finger tighten first, and then we will tighten it down with the tightening sequence. But I want to make sure that it's got even pressure, otherwise you could put a dent in the side of your seal and this will leak again. You don't want it to leak, because then you got to come back and do the whole job all over again. So now I've got them tightened with my fingers, and it's time to tighten it down. So I'm going to show you the tightening sequence here. You're going to do it in a star pattern. So I'm going to do this one first, just like that. Then I'm going to go to the bottom side over here, like that. Then I'm going to go up over here, like that. Then I'm going to go to the very top corner. Now this one's gotten loose because of how it's been tightening. So I'm going to go like that. Then I'm going to go to the outside edge here, like that. And then finally the outside back edge, like that. Now that's the initial tightening. Now I'm going to tighten it again. There is a torque spec for this, and if you're not sure what it is, you can look it up for your vehicle and tighten it to that torque spec. If you do not have a torque wrench, it's probably okay. I'm going to go for the tight as I want to go approach. So I'm going to go like this, and I'm going to cinch it again, about like that. I'm going to do the same tightening sequence, about like that. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to go like that, and over here, like that. Finally over here to there, and then the last one right there. Now that should be tight enough. It seems like it is. Now, how do you know if you've got it tight enough? Well, that's really simple. If you start it and it leaks, it's not tight enough. If you start it and it doesn't leak, it's tight enough. If it develops a leak after you use it for a little bit, well, it wasn't tight enough, it needs to be tightened again. So now I'm going to put my thermostat back in. I'm reusing the old thermostat. If you're using a new thermostat, just know that there's a little tab right there where the rubber gasket goes into to make sure that it's all aligned correctly. That's important for when this is in, which it'll be in like that. There's a little hole right there, and that hole is to allow some coolant to go through before the thermostat even opens. So it's important that that hole is facing up. Now this did come with new bolts and a new gasket, so I'm going to do the same thing as before. I'm going to put the gasket on like this, and then I'm going to just finger tighten it in. Now some people prefer to use liquid gasket in place of paper gaskets, and that's totally up to you if you want to do that. I don't want to do that because I don't have any. So I'm going to just thread these in by hand at first, like that, and like that. Again, you do not want to crank down one side first. You want to tighten it down evenly. If you don't, you can actually crack that housing, which would suck, because then you're going to be back at the store buying a new housing, and they'll probably want you to buy the kit that comes with the housing at that point, which means you're going to have to buy it twice. So that's it for the pump. The pump is back on now, and it's time to re-put the hoses back on. Before I put the pulley back on, I want to get these hoses on first, while I've got them totally accessible. Like that. Because once that pulley's on, it's a little bit harder to get to them. It's not impossible, but it is a little bit harder. So why make things hard for yourself? There, so there's one. Now we figure out where that other one even went to. It's over there. Oh, cameraman's getting in the way. And then same deal, put that one on like that. Make sure you don't get them mixed up, because your heat would work backwards if you did. So there, those are on. Now I can put this one on. I don't know if I want to put that one on yet. I think I'm going to put the pulley on first. So I'm going to put the pulley on now. Now here's the thing, 2 of my pulley bolts are long, 1 is short. If you don't remember which one came from where, all you got to do is look down here and we can see that these 2 go right through into nothing. So if I were to go like that, it's okay if they're long. This one threads into a cast block. So I'm going to assume that this short one is the one that goes in there. So that's how I'm going to decide. Smart mechanics already know where it goes, and even smarter mechanics will get cardboard and draw the water pump and then draw the water pump on a piece of cardboard and then stick the bolts in to the holes that they drew so that they know for sure where they went. Now, I've done okay just guessing where things go, so that's my approach, as you can tell. You remember these were super tight, so how tight do you make them when you're putting them back on? In this case, as tight as you can get them, like that. You don't really want this coming off due to you not tightening it enough. All the pulleys are back on where they need to be, so all I've got to do is hook up the 2 big hoses and then we're ready to go. So I got to figure out where those big hoses are. I shoved this one over here like that. Okay, there's one clamp on, and I'm going to save the last one until after the belt's on. Now, you remember I promised you a way to tell if you're putting the belt on correctly. So if you look at this belt, it is a grooved belt. If you look at the pulleys, we've got grooved pulleys like that, and we've got flat pulleys. A grooved pulley will never go on a grooved belt will never go on a flat pulley with the groove side down. It'll always go with the flat side down. So that gives you a clue. I always like to start on the bottom, which you can see there. And we're going to just see how close we can get here. I got a feeling that this goes around that, like that, and that goes on there like that, and that goes like that, and that doesn't go like that. I've got too much extra. And just like that, we got the belt back on, presumably where it belongs. So we're just going to check and make sure they've got on by teeth. Now, here's the deal. One of the secrets you need to know is that any pulley you want to have at least like 170 degrees of contact with the pulley for it to work right. So any of the pulleys that'll have a load should have that. So this is the alternator, it's got a load, and you can see my belt goes around a lot of it. Down here is my power steering pump, and you can see my belt goes around 180 degrees of the power steering pump. Way down here, this is my engine. The engine is what drives all of this, so I need good contact with that. So the belt goes underneath and then comes back up over the water pump, which then also has a full 180 degrees of contact. The only ones that don't is this, which is just an idler. It doesn't do anything except allow me to change the direction of the belt, so it doesn't have to have a big wrap. This is my tensioner, which also does not require the same amount of wrap through it. So I have figured out how this is supposed to go. A good tip for you would be to just take a picture of your belt before, and then you don't have to try to guess. But we guessed right, and now all I got to do is hook up this hose here, which I'm going to do right now, like that, and then it just goes on like that. Make sure it's on nice and tight, and then I can clamp that down. There we go. Now I can take this, clip it back on so that it's not in anybody's way, like that. Okay, now we'll tighten these back down before I put the cover on. You don't want these coming off, so it's probably a really good idea to do this. Like tighten it down, I mean. Tighten this one down. Like that. There. Now we're going to just make sure we got nothing in the way here. So now that the water pump's in, we need to add our antifreeze. And this is a self-burping system. So all we need to do is loosen our cap right there and fill this up and then start the truck. So I'm going to fill it right now and then start the truck and let it burp itself. There's two kinds of coolant. There's concentrated and there's something like this that says 50-50 premix. Up in Canada, things freeze. I made a video that talks about how to check your coolant to see if the freezing point is low enough that you'll be okay. I buy concentrated coolant because it's easy to add that and then add water after. And if you go too strong, it can create problems, but not as many problems if you go too weak by watering down 50-50. So I'm going to add this, and then I'll top up with distilled water. So I've added about half of this. Now I'm going to go in the house, and this one's empty. I do have a distiller inside my house, so I'm just going to fill this up with distilled water and then come back and add that. Okay, I got my distilled water. Top it up the rest of the way. Okay, I'm going to start the engine now and see if we lose any water from the started engine. So that squealing that you hear right now, that is because coolant ran all over the belt. Now that should go away, which it just did. Now, what I'm doing, I'm looking to see if coolant is leaking anywhere. I want to make sure that I don't have any coolant leaks left over and that I haven't missed anything while I keep an eye on the coolant level. And I'm going to just keep topping that up while the truck warms up and takes all the coolant that I just added. One thing everyone says to do is to turn your heat up. So you can't see it very well because, there, now you can see it. So I've turned it to 32 and 32. It's currently not blowing any heat. My temperature gauge is slowly coming up, but I'm going to rev the engine a bit just to help circulate the water until I feel some air blowing into this thing. Let's turn that up and turn the AC off. So I'm just running it up to 2000 RPM. You can hear the belt squealing away because it's not happy. But I just want to get some heat in there so it actually takes the coolant into there. So the thermostat should be opening up soon, and then I'll be able to get more coolant into here, and then I should get some heat from my vent. So it's still set to 32 and it is blowing boiling hot air out of here. It's actually 33, I don't know if you can see it there, 33 degrees today. So it's super hot already, but the temperature is coming up and the thermostat seems to be working good. My squealing belt is still there, but whatever. Let's go check our water level out here. So my water level is right around there. I don't know if you can see it very well. It's just down around there. So that's good enough. I'm going to just put the lid on. Like that. So we're gonna let this just stay warmed up. I'm gonna go take it for a drive, make sure everything's okay, get a chance for all the bubbles to work out of it. But this repair is done. Why are you gonna do this repair? Well, I had a guy coming to do this today. He took forever and it ultimately never showed up. I was gonna pay him $400 for the parts and the labor. It just took me an hour and a half to do this job. The parts costed me $150. So I've saved $250 by doing this myself. It's easy, you can do it with basic hand tools, you can do it yourself. I hope that helped you. Don't forget to check out some of our other videos over here. We hope to see you again, but until next time, have a great day.